When you think of Greenland, what is the first emotion that comes up?
I don't want to say regret, but certainly pain. You're so isolated and so independent that you also have to be as a team, especially in this case, we had to be self-sufficient together. And no, that's empowering, right? Like, I think we
Mhm.
live our lives in constant ease and we're almost seeking out ease to make life better. But when you're in those environments and you have to nothing's easy and you still figure out how to do it and problem solve your way around it and we had to deal with super light wind that normally I would never be kiting in, all the way up to massive storms far beyond my comfort level to handle.
So, what happened to you a couple of days ago?
So the wind was really strong. I've already kind of held back the team a little bit. It was tough. It was really tough.
But you did it good.
But yeah, we pulled through a lot of ibuprofen. Probably way more than I should have taken.
What did you get?
I got a card, but I can't read it.
When you think of Greenland, what is the first emotion that comes up?
I don't want to say regret, but certainly pain. It was very hard, probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
Wow. What was the so just to kind of go back a little bit before we dive into the whole adventure, I'm just curious, how was it that you bumped into this kind of adventure and then suddenly decided, hey, I want to go do that?
Yeah, so I am really into kite surfing, on the water. So I do twin tip, foiling, really spend all of my free time trying to find the next great kite spot. And this kind of came on my radar a couple years ago when adventure friend of mine, Keith Tuffley, who'd done trips to the South Pole. He'd done bicycle to the South Pole. He'd done the North Pole. He brought up this time where he was trudging along on skis and the snow kiter passed by him. And he was like, damn, that's an easier way to get to where I need to go. So I got kind of interested in maybe doing one of these expeditions by snow kite. Had done a little bit of snow kiting just recreationally before. Um, and it all kind of came together when a friend of mine, Daphne, she had planned for years a group of gals to go on this trip to cross Greenland. And at the time, I thought, oh well, this sounds like a nice warm up for a bigger expedition. Sounds like something maybe I should give a try, but wasn't really keen on going with such a big group of people. Turns out most of the people that were planned to go with her backed out of the trip, and I said, well, last minute, which was, probably 9 months before, let's try to put the pieces together and make it happen. So it was Daphne and I and another woman who we both knew in Norway who would be our guide named Camilla. And Camilla introduced UC to us, said that there was this other Finnish guy. We could use his strength on the trip, and might also break up the all girl dynamics. So why don't we have him along? And it was a great idea. So then there were four.
Wow. So I mean, you mentioned, I mean, you obviously have this strong background in kite to surfing. Yeah, kite surfing already. Whenever you decided, then okay, this is something that I'm going to be doing, and with three other people, did you have an idea? And well, you had obviously done some kite skiing already, but did you have any idea sort of what was waiting for you whenever you got caught up with that group? What was the sort of like a preparation? Did it tell you, hey, this is what you need to train, this is how you need to train, and this is sort of what are the expectations that we have as a group towards you, so that we are able to accomplish this journey?
So I would say less than we should have. I'd done a little bit of training, if you can call it that, in Norway, where it was just kind of, I would say like trying to get my comfort with snow kiting in general. Look, skiing is a big part of this. I'm probably, fairly basic skier. I can make it down a red run without killing myself, but I'm certainly not professional. So coupling that with snow kiting and kind of the additional and what was completely new for me equipment of using these foil kites instead of inflatable kites. So a little bit different kiting equipment, and then all of the expedition level stuff, how to rig up on the polk, how to pull the polk, snow camping, all of these sort of aspects. But it was very limited training where there was also always a warm cabin very close by. Um, and also in not probably as wide of conditions that we certainly dealt with in Greenland. We had to deal with super light wind that normally I would never be kiting in, all the way up to massive storms, far beyond my comfort level to handle. Um, and I think we besides us knowing, Daphne and Camilla and I knowing each other, first of all, UC had never in person met any of us. And the entire coordination, I mean, Daphne was in the US, I was in Nigeria, UC in Finland, and Camilla in Norway. All of our coordination was over Zoom calls with extremely busy people. I mean, Daphne and I are both running our own businesses. We would try to get on a call, kind of execute, have a couple questions, and that was about it. So there was never really, I think, we never had any time to train together as a team, and probably not enough time to really weigh our skill levels via, versus what was ahead of us in Greenland, because really none of us had any sort of idea. I mean, you see probably more than Daphne and I, but any sort of idea of what was kind of ahead of us. And naivety is bliss. I think we expected it to be an adventure, but not as challenging as it was, and didn't necessarily realize how our skill levels, me with being quite competent on the water, doesn't always, it certainly didn't translate to being as competent on the snow. Um, so, I think there was a little bit of mismatch in expectations there of what skill level we needed to have, team dynamics, which we hadn't yet experienced before. And then, the, we learned kind of team building, conflict management, um, workflows on the go rather than actually having some time ahead of time to kind of work that out and understand how it would all flow together. So I mean, it worked, but I think certainly it brought around a bunch of surprises during the trip.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm trying to wonder. I mean, where did this sort of adventurous spirit come from?
Yeah, it's a good question. Besides my genetics, I think my parents certainly pushed me to take risks, and this probably goes back to, the sports that I like. I started traveling at quite a young age, and I've traveled, around the world, have built a career in Africa, in Nigeria, of all places. So, I certainly have a little bit of this adventure spirit. And I think when you are motivated, maybe you get your dopamine hits by doing something that's challenging and maybe a little bit risky, you keep looking for the next thing that's maybe a little bit more. So, I've done some mountaineering. I've uh, trekked across the Sahara Desert with a camel driver. I've, been to very remote places. I crossed Borneo by foot, and this was kind of probably in kind of that line, working up to the next big challenge. Yeah, I don't know what's next on the horizon. I'm sure there'll be something that pushes that even further.
What is it that you're chasing with all these kinds of adventures?
It is, I think it's a lot of things. It is certainly a sense of fulfillment. I mean, when you do something hard and you finish it, I think you have a readjustment of what you can accomplish, and kind of take that away to your daily life. I think your threshold expands. Um, I mean, I think they're also in environments like this, and Greenland was certainly a great example of that, where there's such low times, the up times, like the senses of awe that you experience as a contrast are, they're, hate to say it again, but awe-inspiring. Like, it's absolutely transformative, those experiences, and I think you don't get those in um, kind of your normal life. um, yeah, let me think. Hmm.
Do you think the fact that not a lot of people are actually doing those things that sort of makes those moments and those experiences of awe what make it so precious for you?
Yeah, but it's also, a little bit of the sense of being, um, you're so isolated and so independent that you also have to be as a team, especially in this
Mhm.
case, we had to be self-sufficient together. And that, I don't know, that's empowering, right? Like, I think we
Mhm.
live our lives in constant ease, and we're almost seeking out ease to make life better. But when you're in those environments and you have to, nothing is easy, and you still figure out how to do it and problem solve your way around it and get through the hardest times. Yeah, it makes you feel tough. I mean, I think it makes me feel, it's part of my identity, my self-worth at the end of the day.
That's very interesting. I wonder if it's also sort of part of, I mean, obviously, I did a little bit of research and, you're a venture capitalist, you have, built businesses and you're highly successful women. So at this point of your life, I mean, you have a life of comfort. So is it because of the life of comfort that you have been able to achieve for yourself that going into these uncomfortable situations where, in a way, it's just challenging everything that you know, everything that you have seen around the world, does it make you appreciate the level of comfort that you have built for yourself every time that you put yourself into discomfort?
Yeah, I mean, it made the days out on the ice even made you appreciate coming back to a freeze-dried meal and a tent, right? So taking that, and I mean, every day out there, I was just thinking, oh my God, like, I would give anything just to wake up in a bed, go to the bathroom on a porcelain toilet, and have a cappuccino. Like the I think it puts things in perspective of, we yeah, we live such a life of comfort, and the simple things, just have to cherish those, because it's those little simple things that, make up our love and our enjoyment, and we start to ignore them. But when you're out in an environment where things are so hard, I think you really have perspective, and it gives you clarity over that.
Mm, yeah. So you arrive in Greenland the first day. Walk me through what was the emotion? I mean, I suppose I can only imagine. I mean, maybe since you got on the airplane, going to Greenland, your heart was probably pumping 100 miles an hour. Talk to me
Yeah.
about that. What was the first day like?
Look, I think we were all super excited and nervous. It was almost like Christmas, like you
Yeah.
have all this gear that you've prepped for. We had all of our food in our neat, tidy packets. We get together as a team. We're repacking everything, kind of like, envisioning how this is going to play out day after day and how it's going to be so much fun, but also, so many, again, going back to we didn't have a lot of prep together as a team. And for all of us, this was our first time, except for Camilla, of course. But it was a complete unknown. So I think we were all super excited. I also fell sick. So the first days in Greenland, I actually had come down with the flu, which didn't help physically on our very first 2 days climbing up the glacier. Yeah, that was the first start of the trip, and already was quite challenging. So felt really sick. I had to, haul up weight more than my own body up this ice glacier, and already started lagging behind the team. So it kind of got into this feeling of, wow, this isn't really a joyride. This isn't a vacation. This is going to be a big challenge. And here we go. We're just 2 days in and already could feel it.
Oh shit. You're getting sick. You're starting to feel, I guess, the first pains of the journey. Was there any doubt in your mind that, okay, what else can go wrong? And how am I going to be able to handle these hiccups that are coming along the way? What was your thought process for those situations?
Yeah, I think I'm an eternal optimist, so I wasn't thinking of the bad things that could had happened. I
Mm-hmm.
was more thinking like, this is the road that lays ahead of us. I can't wait to get over this illness, and hopefully I don't give it to the rest of my teammates.
Mm.
Um, and I can't wait to see the beautiful scenery of Greenland. Uh, ended up being a little harder than that, but yeah, I don't think I was panicked about the challenges. And even as the challenges were happening, I took them one by one. I I think that's all you can do in that sort of environment, right? Like you have to just focus on executing, and your mind can't really wander of what is next ahead of you.
Hmm. I guess that sort of level of thinking comes from your background. I mean, you're constantly, perhaps, probably putting up fires everywhere sometimes. So it's just kind of like, you put up one fire at a time and then sort of prepare yourself or brace yourself for whatever comes next.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think certainly in work environment that happens a lot. I don't know if that's translated into how I dealt with some of the challenges we felt in Greenland, but yeah, I think you're right.
How many days did it take you to sort of get back on your feet from the flu that you had?
I think about 4 days I was starting to feel better. Yeah, I was starting to feel better as Daphne started feeling sick. So she did get a little bit of whatever illness I had, because at that point we were sharing a tent.
Oh,
Um, yeah, but then, you know, that was just a start. Had no idea how much more painful it would get going from there.
Jesus. So how many nights total was it going to be? Was it like something like 22 days or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. 22 days.
And what
So
was the amount of, yeah.
we'd planned like we would have there were three potential exit times. So depending on how fast or slow we were, we had separate flights booked to get us out if we were a little bit slower exiting, but ended up being 22 days.
Hmm. Did you have to cover, walk me through a little bit about the logistics of the journey. So was there a specific amount of distance that you had to cover each and every single day to be able to like reach the finish line?
Well, yes. We let's see. I can't remember what our goals were every day. I feel like it was about 70 kilometers, but there were certainly days where we didn't travel at all because of the wind, or we had very slow moving, because it was stormy or uh, you know, light wind challenges. So there were days that were a lot less, and then some days that were much longer. So we probably our average days of traveling was about let's see, we would get up early, probably start moving by 9 or 10 in the morning, and then stop around 6, 7 at night. So full day traveling with maybe a quick lunch break in between. But there were certainly much longer days, especially towards the end when we were trying to pick up ground. So
Mm.
we had actually our one day that was 15 and a half hours that we were
Wow.
traveling. Yeah.
You mentioned about those days where it was a bit slow, there wasn't any wind, and you just couldn't travel. I mean, what did you do during those days?
Yeah, the slower days were kind of a little, it was nice. I mean, we were in the tent trying to fix things, rest a lot. Um, Consume a lot of calories so we could get going again and kind of navigate for the other days. I think that when they got to be day after day when we were stuck in the tent, that's when things got a little restless. I mean, we were losing time, not traveling near as fast as we wanted to, and so our exit date was getting further and further out of reach. And which is why we also had to stretch certain other days. But every once in a while, we certainly did need the break anyway. Our feet were swollen. There was, I'm not sure if UC has told you all this, but I actually had a broken leg. So mending the leg needed some time off of that. The problem with my eyes. We'll probably get into all of this, so I won't. I won't jump
Yeah.
ahead.
Hmm. So you get the slow days. I guess those are the times whenever you have to, rest and whatnot. Something that I've been wondering, just one of the things that came to my mind was, I mean, obviously, you're in the middle of nowhere, and well, you gotta do what you gotta do. How does that work? I mean, do you have to
Yeah,
like dig
I
a
mean,
hole or?
it's not great when it's really cold and windy outside. Um, so it was, yeah, like, I mean, I remember one time where, you're wearing all this like heavy clothes, you're like, you've dug your hole, you're like trying to manage this roll of toilet paper, but keep your hands in your gloves so they don't freeze. And like there was one time when I like stumbled and stepped back into it. It's another time where my toilet roll just like blew off all the way down. So I was just with one end and the toilet paper's all the way downwind. Uh, but during the middle of the day is actually the hardest because you're in all of this snow gear, but you also have a harness around your waist. So when it's time to stop and go to the bathroom, if you're a woman, it's pretty complicated. You like have a lot of clothes that you would have to take off in very, very cold temperatures. So I don't know if you've seen these Shiwi devices. It's like a
Yeah.
funnel that women can use. So that was going successfully for a couple days until it didn't. And then it just leaked all inside of my one pair of clothes, um, which is another fun tent activity. So several nights of wrapping wet clothes around boiling water bottles so it would evaporate. Yeah,
Wow.
not the greatest experience.
Were you aware of those things? Or I guess those kind of workarounds to those situations were those things that were told to you, like, hey, if these things goes wrong, these are the things that is going to happen, or was that completely?
No, man, it was kind of like wing it as you go. I mean, look, the woman, Camilla, our guide, and friend, she is like your epitome of a tough Viking character. I mean, for her, this is like a Saturday stroll. So I think even her anticipating that we would have difficulties and what we were could experience, not having done this before, not having a lot of this expedition or snow kite experience, it was a little bit remote to her. So, there was a lot of learning as you go. Make sure that you have the right attitude and the right tools, and then just get on with things.
Mm, yeah, there's no better way to put it. Now, obviously, things went south. Somewhere along the way, Daphne gets injured. She tears an ACL. What was that like for you, for example? I mean, what happens in your head whenever you see somebody get injured while trying to do the same thing that you are doing?
Yeah, I mean, when Daphne was injured, I think it was really hard, mostly because it tore apart kind of this team dynamic. Um, it- Daphne has a super positive attitude, is always ready to go. For a skill level, she was, I would say, on par with me. So it was kind of, there was Camilla and Yusi, who were quite experienced, professional, essentially, and then Daphne and myself, who were certainly challenged by everything that laid ahead of us. Um, so besides, personally losing somebody, my only close friend that I could kind of, dump all of my shit on, complain, uh, commiserate with. There was also, kind of this very abrupt change in the team dynamic when Daphne was evacuated. Um, I mean, the injury aspect. I mean, I think it there was no, um like, I think we all thought that there could be injuries, right? It is an extreme
Hmm.
sport. Obviously, there's going to be incidences of this. But I think we were all very sad to lose Daphne. And also, she was absolutely heartbroken. I mean, it was her initiative that got all this going to begin with.
Mm. I can imagine. I mean, did it ever put doubts into your mind as to, okay, is this thing even possible to like finish?
No, I never even had, um, I never had doubts that we wouldn't finish, or even
Hmm.
that it would get harder at that point.
Yeah.
I, I kind of thought, well, that happened. That's shit. But the worst is behind us. We'll keep on going and chug through. Um, yeah, I mean, I think it was the evacuation was also handled so professionally, and it was really good to see that if something did really go bad, that it might take days for them to get to you, but there was actually professionally skilled people that had your back and that you could rely on if something really went south.
Yeah. That's something that I think it was maybe 2 years ago. We usually do like this guys camping sort of weekend with UC. And we're sitting around the fire, and he was telling, hey, you know what? I just signed up to this Greenland expedition that is going to be around 1,600 kilometers crossing it. I was like, holy shit. I'm also kind of a sports junkie, but like different kind of sports. So we are just talking about, about the preparation and whatnot. And I asked him, I said, hey, so like, obviously, I mean, that sounds super cool as shit. And I would love to do something like that one day. And I asked him, like, so like, what's the worst thing that could happen? It was like, you can die. So
Yeah.
yeah, that definitely like set the tone to the conversation that we had later on, and that's why he was, preparing so much for it. So sort of seeing that accidents can happen. But I suppose, like you were talking about, the way that the extraction was made, uh, it was in such professional way. I guess, did that give you some assurance that if something goes south, like you said, I mean, that it won't be that bad?
Yeah, it did. But there were other times when I think you also just realize that there are circumstances, to Yusi's point, where it wouldn't matter, right? Like
Hmm.
there were times when we were flying over crevices that we could have fallen into. There were times, I mean, on the last day, we were traveling over blue ice that just fell into, off the abyss, traveling over it on skis very gingerly. And I mean, one gust of wind or a split or your poke starts sliding down. I mean, that's it. You could be done for. So I think that there was a little bit of still at that point naivety on what at least in my mind, what the real risks were. I'm used to extreme sports, I'm used to adventure sports, but this was different. This, you're truly in the wild. You could be It could be days until you got a rescue, and a lot of situations, a lot of the accidents that can happen really could be life threatening.
Hmm. After Daphne's accident or injury, was that like how many days after or before was your injury, and how did it happen that you broke your foot, leg?
Yeah. So Daphne was evacuated. There was this whole kind of like middle part in our
Yeah.
trip where it was a really stormy area, and it was in the beginning of being kind of caught in this hole that Daphne got evacuated. And we continued to move on for a couple days, but there were some days when the wind was extremely strong. I'm 45 kilos. I'm again not super experienced, and in a lot of the super strong wind, I was holding the team back. Like I couldn't travel, so this was slowing down our progress. Of course, Daphne and Camilla were getting frustrated because I was holding back everybody. So in one of these days when the wind was quite strong, I put up a kite that I was borrowing from UC, which was as small as you can get, a super tiny 4-meter kite, just to test whether I could fly it. Um, yeah, put up the kite, and it just absolutely yarded them. It pulled me up and downwind. And at that point, I think my ski twisted, and that's when the ankle broke. So I was laying there in the snow. Daphne and Camilla came running up to see if I was okay, and I was like, "Yeah, I can move it. I don't think it's broken. I'm okay to continue." And I remember this, going back to what a badass Camilla is. I was like, "But can you help me get up?" And she's like, "I think you can get up yourself." So got up, limped back to the camp, and I was like, guys, I don't think I can travel today. And so the rest of the day we spent in the tent. My ankles swell up to twice its size, very black and blue. Swelling never really went down, so you can imagine how hard that was every day to get back into my boot and then to travel on. But the whole time I just I thought it was a really bad sprain. Yeah, always good to not be conservative on your injuries when you're out in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, kept moving on it, but it was hard. I tell you, the first day moving after that, and I think it was the day after it happened that we started moving again. it was one of those, regular 10-hour day, which was a good travel day. And the conditions were perfect. Finally, we had good visibility, we had great wind, but I was just in so much pain, and I was lagging behind everybody. And Camilla and Yusi, I think maybe to like try to encourage me, didn't necessarily like stop and wait. They were like, all right, just rode way ahead of me. And I was in the back by myself and thinking to myself, like, Olympians compete with broken bones, and I can't even ride with a sprained ankle. I need to really, like, my pain threshold must be, I mean, it's average, I think, but it's just the human mentality that makes you kind of uh, have that higher threshold of pain, and just tried to overcome it with that. And, worked after maybe 5 hours, but got, harder and harder to handle mentally. And when I
How did
first,
you?
yeah, what?
So, I mean, it's days and a bunch of hours riding with a broken ankle without you knowing. Obviously, it's broken. Do you think if you knew it was actually broken, would that have made you stop, or you probably could have? Would you just?
Yeah, it's a hard question. And, you know, I mean, I think on one hand, I was determined to finish no matter what. But on the other hand,
Mhm,
if I had thought that there was a risk that I was giving myself permanent damage, it probably
mhm,
would have been a different calculation. So, I mean,
mm.
probably part of me also a little bit, wanted to ignore that there could be something more serious than a sprain going on, and just keeping at it. But yeah, that day when I finally caught up to them and they said, "Okay, this is where we're camping for the night," I broke down in tears. I mean, it was at that point, I think I'd really reached my breaking point. Mentally, it was hard mentally to get through it. The pain had been a lot, and I was thankful to arrive. But I think at that point, I was thinking, how can I continue? I mean, that was at day 10, so another 12, maybe 2 weeks under these conditions, and then shit got real.
So, I mean, during all this time, while you stopping to rest, did you have any contact with the outside world, like with your family, or like what was it like?
Yeah, so I we had a satellite device that could send messages and
Hmm.
photos, but I didn't have my own. So I was using Camilla's to do that. So all of my communication back to family was just through her phone. Um, and on one hand, I like wanted to reach out and share how I felt, but I also didn't
Hmm.
want people to be afraid and, you know,
Mm.
have that worry in the back of my head that also other people were worried if things were going wrong. And my messages to the outside world, again, because I was using Camilla's phone, were super delayed. So at least 4 or 5 days delayed, um, from what I was actually experiencing real time. So there were no calls, just kind of these very short text messages.
Oh my god, I can. It's really hard to imagine. Like, I guess what you must have been thinking, what you must have been going through, breaking out crying. But did that help you? I mean, just being able to sort of feel the full intensity of the pain and sort of did you ever get used to it? Is that something that made you continue?
Yeah. So I think for at least 3 4 days, it was very, I mean, it was painful the whole way through, but I remember the first 3 4 days, it was especially hard. I think I shift the mentality a little bit of thinking, well, besides taking as much painkillers as I could, but shifting the mentality a little bit to make that discomfort an ally, almost
Hmm.
like a carrot to push me to get to the end as fast as I could. Um, and it was also just accepting at that point what I couldn't control. This had happened to me, and now it was time to deal with it and try to get it over as fast as possible. But yeah, the days when we got back in, when we got back into camp, it felt so good to not have to be on that ankle, and it was certainly hard to get moving again the next day. And on the pain, I don't know if it was, just kind of that mental shift, or if it was maybe even the nerves just, had been overstimulated, so it didn't hurt as much. But it did
Hmm.
start to feel a bit better after that 4-day mark on the leg.
That's super interesting. I wonder if it was some sort of like a survival mechanism that allowed you to continue to move forward. I mean, otherwise, I mean, I think sometimes whenever we fall into similar situations, whether it may be something physical or something mentally, I think sometimes the moment that you allow yourself to be fully consumed by the situation and not see sort of and not be able to see a way out, that's when things can kind of get more dangerous, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was kind of this this mentality of not really recognizing that it could be such, or this mentality of shaping it as just a small problem rather than a big one, even though
Hmm.
if I had allowed myself to really think about it, and not feel sorry for myself, but really, really look at kind of the consequences of the situation I was at, I think I would have had a much harder time progressing every day for such long days and ultimately reaching the end.
Hmm. I'm trying to. I want to pick more a little bit your brain on the mental side. So you have this injury, you have the pain, you manage to sort of ignore it, if you want to call it that. But was there some kind of pattern recognition as everything that you were doing in the future? I mean, did you find yourself be able to perform with a lot more calculation than to the previous, let's say, than to the first stage of the journey?
I actually think it might have been the opposite. I think I tried to convince myself into a little bit of a state of just be and do rather than think about it. So, there's in Greenland, there's these sand dunes that form that calls the strugies, and they're quite hard. So when you hit them, of course, you're like hitting something that's not
Concrete.
very comfortable on a broken, yeah, not very comfortable on a broken ankle. And some days, there was complete whiteout visibility, and rather than sh- I don't know, rather than view the pain or even like the obstacles of not in invisibility, not being able to see what I was hitting or running into with my legs as real threats, I just tried to reframe it as a perception of like,
Hmm.
it's there, and you just go, you just manage through it, and um, it's not a threat that's actually going to have a long-term effect on you. It's a very short-term pain that you'll probably forget about even the feeling of it in 6 months. Which is true. I mean, I have a hard time now really like remembering that sense that I felt on the ice and how it felt. I mean, I can remember it was hard and I was in pain. Um, but just, yeah, trying to frame it like that. This is very short term. It's only perceived risk or pain at this moment. And ultimately none of it really has that big of an impact in the big scheme of things.
Well, that's super interesting. I wonder while those things were going on, were you coming to conclusions or sort of self discoveries during that particular period of harshness?
Yeah, I mean, you asked a little bit about um, like my sense of what sense of comfort back home and coming back to that. When I left for Greenland, I was actually kind of in a dark place. Um, I was a little bit, I was bored with life. I've kind of been doing the same thing professionally for quite a while. Um, I just felt like I was really in kind of a rut. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it made me reframe that quite a bit. Um, Almost, the these aren't problems that I'm dealing with back home. These are, little inconveniences sometimes. Um, Boredom, there's always a way to get out of that. And also taking risks to change things isn't actually that big of a deal. Um, let's see. Trying to let's you know I guess a perspective on how if I am not doing such big adventures like this every year, how can I remind myself on more of a frequent basis to stretch myself? I
Mm-hmm.
think is certainly something I took away from it. And I mean, I definitely realized that you can really train yourself for a higher threshold of discomfort through anything, whether that's bad relationships, whether it's work, and then pushing through it or solving it.
It's beautiful. It's always kind of interesting how, obviously, if we think about the problems different people face, I mean, some people don't have options as to the kind of problems that they're faced with. But I think it's quite important for people that have reached a certain position or a certain level of comfort in life to expose themselves to, well, I think harsh things. I
Yeah,
think it definitely does help us value the beautiful things that we have in life and puts things into perspective, and maybe it even grounds us a little bit. You know, I've had a bunch of conversations like this with other people, and some of the people obviously have grown up in harsh conditions, and now that they live a pretty lavish life. And it's kind of interesting that at some point, sometimes they have mentioned to me is that, sometimes, all this comfort and all these nice things, these trips and first class and whatnot, like, it gets kind of boring sometimes. It kind of feels like I don't see the value in it anymore because I'm not struggling for it. It's a very different feeling the first time I was able to purchase a business class flight versus, after the 20th one, after the 50th one. It's just sort of like meh. But
yeah.
it says, like, I have to be able to, like, put myself in difficult situations where I have to be able to solve a problem that can make a huge impact in my life. Says otherwise, I kind of feel like I'm just getting stuck in very minor problems. I
I
guess
think
that's one of the
it's
takeaways.
a
Yeah.
great way to say it. I mean, I think it also shifts your perception of fake problems versus just perceived problems, right? Like we almost make up problems in our daily life that are inconsequential at the end of it. So I think it reshapes that perspective, and also your threshold of what you can accomplish in everything.
Yeah. So moving on to the, let's say, like, the last phase of the journey, Did it get worse?
Yeah, it got worse.
What happened?
So the next thing to happen, we were traveling in a whiteout, so such a bad storm. And when these storms hit, just to give you a little bit of sense of how it felt, the visibility was so bad when you would look down at your feet, you couldn't tell if you were moving or not. And this kind of gives you like this weird seasickness. You can't see the horizon. You just have a very warped sense of where you are. But anyway, we're riding through this whiteout, and I'd taken put my glasses up on my helmet so I could see a little bit better, so I could actually kind of navigate. Was getting super seasick as we were going, and I lost my goggles. And I was like, well, it's okay. Like the sun isn't out. What damage can this do to my eyes? And the day ended fine. I mean, it didn't feel like my eyes hurt. And then when we were back in tent, at this point, Yusi and I were sharing a tent. We're doing our nightly routine. We're boiling water, getting our meal ready, getting the ice off of our gloves. And I'm like, Yusi, why is it so steamy in here? Like to me, it looked like it was a sauna. It was like all of this fog. And he's like, it's not. It's just as normal as it was. And that's when we realized that probably through the day I'd gotten snow blindness. And the next day, um, the vision was terrible. So at that point, there was no pain. I just couldn't see anything. It was like very, again, like looked super steamy, was white, blurry. I couldn't even see if my hands were extended, like the full digits of my hand. And with the kite, I couldn't see whether the lines were crossed or not, which is also, troubling when you're riding and looping the kite. And I couldn't see my teammates. So they'd have to come up every once in a while and say, Lexi, now we have to adjust you to go this direction. You're going the wrong direction. And then I would
Oh my
just
god.
go straight, or what I perceived to be straight, because I couldn't see anything. So the at that point we had a little bit of frostbite, which we haven't talked about yet, the broken leg, and now the snow blindness. But it got worse from this point. So the next so the next day the vision actually came back. No, let me talk a little bit more about that day without any vision. So couldn't see anything, but it's still stormy weather. I'm still riding on this really small kite, which is, reacts like a mosquito. It's all over the place, and I can't really even see where it's going, besides like a blob of color. And at one point, I like crashed my kite. UC's like trying to help me set up my kite, and he's like, "Go, go get the rope and the lines." And I was like looking around. I'm like, I can't. He's like yelling at me. He's like, "I said, go get it." I'm like, I can't freaking see where it is. But yeah, it was quite ridiculous. And I think frustrating, even more frustrating for them probably than me. I was getting super handicapped at that point. And anyway, the next day, that problem turned into a lot of pain. So, you know, felt like came in these spasms. They would last like 10 minutes. So felt like a you know, million needles just jabbing into my eyes. And when it would come, I couldn't keep my eyes open, so they're like watering. And yeah, but the weather was good. We had to keep moving. So went and set up my gear, laid out all my equipment, and every 10 minutes this would come, and it would just like be so incapacitating. But continuing to ride that way, and essentially like kept my eyes shut uh, during that time, and just would try to ride straight again. But again, like lost my teammates, and a couple, let's say we'd probably been going for 3 hours. I don't remember exactly, but maybe 3, 4 hours. And I finally, they'd waited for me, caught up to them, and I said, look, I can't ride like this. Like I can't see. I'm riding with my eyes closed. I have no idea what's in front of me. And at that point, I had to, I took down my kite and we coordinated to put me in the sled and UC started pulling me. And that was a low point. I mean, that was hard because at that point, I think up until that point, I had been feeling self-sufficient. I was in pain, but I was still managing. I was still doing it. Had still carrying my own gear, my own sleds, but at this point, I couldn't continue on my own, and I needed my teammates to be there for me. And they needed me to keep moving. So this was the only way we could do it. And for UC, I'm sure, like that meant him taking on more weight with me. For Camilla, she had to haul more sleds. So it became more work for them. And I felt at that point, I was dead weight. Um, and that truly was an absolute low point.
Was it a low point more because it kind of went against the identity that you have built versus actually just being extra things to carry?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so. I mean, I like to think of myself as tough. I can handle hard situations. I can push through. Um, when the going gets tough, I get tougher. And and this was a point where I couldn't. I had to give in. I had to tell my teammates in my vision, I'm telling them I'm not strong enough to continue with this. And not only that, but you now have to do extra work because I'm not strong enough. So I'm holding you back. And yeah, and I guess, I think just as you said, not living up to my own expectations.
Hmm. Has that changed you? How you are now? That particular experience of being cared for?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely kicked me with some humility.
Hmm.
I I mean, realizing we all have our fragility. I'm fragile too, and I need other people to depend on. Um, always valued my independence, but I guess if I'm trying to take learnings into other aspects of my life, I mean, I need it in I needed it in Greenland, and I need it everywhere else too. I need it in my family, in my personal life, in my work. But yeah, it's probably still something hard to admit.
Hmm. What were you reflecting on as you were being carried on a sled?
I was I was thinking about how much my husband and my dad are going to make fun of me. Um, but yeah, I mean it uh, I mean, what was I reflecting on? I mean, I would say it was only, I mean, you asked me earlier when I broke my leg, if I ever thought, you know, if I'd known it was broken, would I have evacuated? And I think at that point, I almost had felt like a little bit of, oh, you know, Daphne doesn't realize how lucky she was to get pulled out of this situation so early. And look, I mean, things could have gone differently, of course, but Yeah, I mean, it was hard to accept it. I mean, I was not in control at that point and had kind of reached my limits. And I guess we all have limits. I hope I can keep pushing them higher, and we'll always strive to. But I think even then we have to have the humility that we're still human.
Mm. When did it get better?
Snow blindness took 2 days to get better from the pain, and then life was beautiful. It was great again once that passed. Then we only had the ankle to deal with.
I remember there was I think it was a couple of days where the team was stuck. There wasn't any wind. I mean, I saw the picture. It was quite sunny. And so I suppose at that point, it was already when the snow blindness had gone away. But now
Yeah,
you were just stuck.
yeah, we were
What
just stuck
changed?
and we were bored, man. Yeah, I mean so we'd kind of made it out of this super stormy hole, but into an area where we now had the other problem, where the wind was super light. Um, And riding in light wind is a whole different skill. I mean, you're riding with very big, very slow moving kites and having to loop them in these big turns without hitting the ground. So it takes a lot
Mm.
of focus to be able to do that. Um, and when the wind was so light that we couldn't even travel with these great big kites, we were stuck, or we were trying to see how far we could get, see if we could travel a kilometer before the wind would die again, which was also, super frustrating. You get all your gear going, get everything set out, you travel for a little bit, and then the wind dies and your kite crashes and you have to sort everything out again. But when I think the biggest, I mean, we just didn't know how long we would be stuck. I mean, we could have been stuck there for weeks with no wind, missing our timelines, probably running, lower on food than we were prepared for. And yeah, luckily it came back enough for us to get out of there, but we had to take advantage, when it did.
There were some days where you had plus 200 kilometers of riding.
Yeah,
How did you manage that last push?
it was hard. I mean, like mentally, never mind how your body is reacting, but mentally you're just so tired. I mean, you're not getting a lot of sleep, but you've also had to focus very cognizantly on all of your riding, on the skiing, on the kite positioning. There's not another thought that could enter your mind. I prepared for this whole trip with a ton of like audiobooks and podcasts that I was so excited to listen to, but like really you can't do that because there's so much you have to focus on just getting it right, or at least I did given my skill level. And um yeah, those long days, I mean, some of those days we could barely even stop for a break, um either because the wind was too strong, or it was too cold, or we just really needed to travel far. And so, you're stuffing your pockets full of a little bit of food to get the calories in when you can kind of sit down with your kite still in the air and keep moving again. Um, but yeah, I mean, those long days were really hard. I wanted to stop on those long days. I wanted to break it up. I was a little bit worried, to be honest, that I was so fatigued that another accident would happen. Um, because yeah, they were long days.
Hmm. What was the feeling finally crossing the finish line?
So good. I don't think I've ever been so relieved in my life. Oh my gosh. I mean, even like so the last day we took down our kites and we again walked pulling the pokes. And I remember getting up to that last ridge line and seeing, the fjord, the frozen fjord down below, and just having like this sense of relief, like, wow, we actually made it, and I'm gonna get a hot shower in a couple hours. Yeah, I don't think I've ever felt that sense of accomplishment, but also just elatement. I mean, it was the most beautiful thing I could have ever seen.
Hmm. Were you able to talk to your family?
Yeah, so I called my family that night. Um, so when we finally got back to civilization, which was a very weird feeling, by the way, stepping into like a heated cottage. Yeah, and then connecting, getting my phone out and calling my parents and everybody realizing that I was back in civilization safely. I think everybody was really happy. It felt really good. It felt like, that I was out there for longer than 22 days. It felt like months. But, back home, very little had actually changed. I mean, at work, the same deals were getting pushed through. My family was the same. There was no new news. And you just kind of realize, you can check out, even if you're building a business, even if you have a busy work schedule. You can still check out for a period of time, probably come away with a whole different perspective on life, and it'll still be waiting for you when you get back.
Hmm. Looking back on everything, what would you say has been the biggest lesson for you that you still carry on every day?
Look, I think my biggest lesson, and even now, we're not even a year, I mean, not even 6 months past the trip, but even now I have to remind myself of it. But it's like appreciate the mundane. Every little bit of our life, there's just so much to be grateful for. Um, and yeah, and then, the challenges that we think are rocky in our normal life, trying to really put those in perspective. Are these just perceived challenges, or are they real? And certainly there's some real challenges that people have to deal with, but I think or at least I, tend to see kind of my daily conflicts and, take it to heart. Um, and I think this put it in a lot of perspective of what really matters and what we should focus our energy on at the end of the day.
Hmm. Beautiful. What do you hope your legacy to be?
I'm not sure if I believe in much of a legacy. I think we should kind of live life in the moment. But if there's anything, I would like to be a little bit of an agent to enable other people to live their best life, whether that's, I mean, in my work, helping entrepreneurs build businesses with a little bit of my investment capital and hopefully the catalytic effects that happens. Or, maybe even being a little bit of a instigator rather than an inspiration
Mm.
to some of my close friends, and trying to push them out of their comfort zone. Not sure if it's a legacy, but hopefully it's a little bit of change.
It's always something. Lexi, this has been an absolute pleasure just deep diving into your adventure. I think it's fair to say you're like the female version of David Goggins. I don't know if you know who that is.
I don't know. I wish. Yeah.
Jesus, wow. My hat's off to you. I mean, you're an incredible person. Just the willpower that you have, I think it's something that a lot of people can take in, including myself. You know, it's very different to see something like this happen just from a screen, but whenever you get a chance to talk to the person and sort of see, well, your body language, taking you back to those moments, it's just it's quite special, and I really appreciate you sharing that with me and, well, with our listeners. Lexi, for those of us and the people that want to keep up with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, probably the best place is Instagram. I'm easy to find. It's Lexi Novitske, just like my name, no spaces. Lots of content of adventure sports, but also my dog. So hope you're willing to be there for that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right then, bye everybody.